fishing has been a part of my life for pretty much as long as I can remember. I grew up in Crowley Lake, California, and there's a lake right there and all sorts of little streams. And my dad would just take us fishing for perch. We'd go cast these jigs for perch, and we'd have these huge perch fries. They're just the best eaten, you know. And so like I was introduced to fishing at a very early age. And then my dad had this old Hardy reel that he got at a garage sale or something. It was like this super old school reel. And he bought us a rod, my brother and I, and we had a pond in our backyard, and there was tons of trout in there. And so we went to the pond, and he taught us how to cast a fly rod, and that was my first introduction to fly fishing ever.
I don't have one of those cool stories like, oh, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania and Grandpa would take me to the cabin fishing. No, my dad would take us carp fishing with dough balls and Zebco, you know, spin rods, but I always enjoyed it, you know, and I moved out to Tahoe actually after college to snowboard, and I had never touched a fly rod, and I'd spent a lot of time. I had 2 puppies, and I was on the Truckee River a lot first year looking at people fly fishing. And I was attracted to the artistic nature of it. I was watching really good people. There's a lot of great anglers around Tahoe. And man, I had a buddy that was a pro snowboarder, and it was kind of getting big in the snowboard industry to fly fish during the summer. And he's like, I got some stuff, let's go out. And even though I was a tangled mess that whole first day, I was just really drawn into that artistic aspect of watching somebody cast, and then mindfulness aspect of angling. And then it just kind of took over my summers. I stopped skateboarding and wakeboarding, and I just wanted to fly fish all the time. And within 2 years, I did it so much, I started guiding. And just part-time initially for the first summer, and then I'm like, wow, I could do this year-round. And then started steelheading and started going to New Zealand, and spent 8 years in New Zealand during the winters, and snowboarding became a distant kind of memory and passion because I was just so immersed in wanting to fly fish. And then it became a vehicle to just travel around the world. Again, the fish, it's a nice accoutrement of angling, but it's not the sole purpose of doing it. It's the lifestyle and the passion and who you meet and hang with.
I loved hearing stories about how the guys fell in love with fly fishing, and as I listened, I saw parallels between my own journey within the sport. In the end, regardless of how we ended up here, we were all on common ground, passionate about fly fishing and really about steelhead in general.
I grew up in Philadelphia, and
Captain Philly.
I grew up in Philly, and there wasn't like too much access to fishing, but my dad lived in New Jersey, and every weekend when I got to go and visit him, he'd take me out to the bay, and like we'd either go out on a charter boat or something, or on his boat. And I'm like, you know, this is 6 to 10 years old basically, but every weekend, like, that's what I was looking forward to, is going out and going fishing with my pops, and just like, it was awesome. And my stepdad, who lives in Oregon, where I live now, he has all these fly rods. Like, he was just total gear freak, so he'd always have tons of equipment, more than he ever knew what to do with. So I'd like go and like take his fly rods and go to the river, and just, again, whatever would come up and eat my dry fly, I was into. So like just little trouts. I'm pretty sure I was catching smolts back then, and like pretty hyped on it. And after that, I was like, man, like I wanted to know what was next in fly fishing, and I'd have a little bit of help from like a couple of friends, but nobody was really taking me out until my buddy Abe Blair, which is a fellow photographer and snowboard photographer who I've idolized forever. He took me out and on a trout fishing trip, and like showed me how it was done. And we had like awesome 3-day experience, like caught so many trout. I was like tripping out. I was like, so this is what it's like. Okay. Like he would tell me about steelhead fishing, and I was like super intrigued. I was like, wow, this sounds like the coolest type of fishing there possibly could be.
There's a place in
Once upon a time, fly fishing was considered to be quite dry. And over the past decade, I've really noticed that a lot of people are comparing the fly fishing industry today to the snowboarding industry. And every time that I hear that comparison, you'll hear somebody say, well, that's probably what they went through with the ski to snowboard transition. Same thing with the single hand rod to the spay fishing with shooting heads with graphite rod transition. Can you guys see any comparisons?
Yeah. Like we were going from like these graphite rods that were awesome to now like, man, like what's the most basic way we can catch these fish? And we're using like Hardy's and bamboo rods and stuff, and like all the snowboard companies are like, wow, what can we do different to make our snowboard?
For me, you know, being a professional snowboarder, you go out and you just spend so much of your time in just like these mountains, and like this just open your eyes and you're just like, how did I even get here? And like for me, the connection between snowboarding and fishing is exactly that. Like I'm standing here on this river, like looking out, just like how beautiful is this right now?
Way more young people are getting more involved.
Right,
They're getting educated. Social media really helps.
right.
You know, they get upset about stuff that affects their fisheries, and they're prepared to put their money where the mouth is and support it and work towards finding solutions for it. And I think that's really important because, of course, without it, you know, where would we be? And I thought for a long time we were doomed because young people just had no interest. They just wanted to go fishing. They didn't want to fight for anything. And, you know, I think Bob Hooton said it best. He said, people don't realize what we used to have.
I mean, it's up to us, right? Like, it's up to us to teach the younger generation to appreciate what we have here. We wouldn't know about, you know, doing this if we weren't taught in one way or another, you know? Like, I think it really comes up to each and every one of us to, you know, do our part to share how special this is, and that if we aren't careful, you know, money hungry lion bastards, you know, they're gonna do everything they can to, you know, and pillage this land. And I think, you know, everybody doing their part to talk about that and really just show, you know, the younger generation how special it is. I think that's the best thing.
just